My son had no clue my paycheck had just exploded when he yelled at me to get out, called me a useless bum, and flung hot coffee all over me. I didn't say a word, just turned around and left. The next morning, his face went white when I pulled into the driveway in a brand new luxury sports car, and what happened next left him completely shaken. Hook asterisk, he screamed, "Get out, you worthless beggar," and the scalding tea splashed across my face. That moment, as searing as the liquid itself, was supposed to break me. But what he didn't know was, my life had just taken a breathtaking turn, a turn that would leave him utterly speechless the very next day. And, honestly, I never thought I'd be telling a story like this. Can you believe it? At 68, when most of my friends are happily settled, enjoying grandkids and quiet evenings, I found myself tiptoeing around my eldest son's house, flinching at every sound. My name is Eleanor Vance, and for years I was just an accountant. Not glamorous, I know, but after my husband, Arthur, died so suddenly, he just slumped in his chair one evening when our kids were 8, 12, and 14. Stability was everything. His passing left me alone, with 3 little ones and a mortgage, so my job at Sterling Construction was my lifeline. Mr. Sterling, my boss, was an absolute godsend. He understood. He let me work from home. He never questioned an urgent advance. I worked for him for 34 years. My children grew up so differently. My middle daughter, Clara, is the sweetest. She became an elementary school teacher, married a programmer named David, and gave me 2 wonderful grandkids, Max and Lily. They live in Portland, but they call constantly, and their Christmas packages, with homemade cards from the kids, always bring a tear to my eye. My youngest, Leo, inherited Arthur's love for electronics. He's an engineer in Chicago and, though he doesn't call as often as Clara, he quietly sends money every month, even when I tell him I'm fine. He's going through a tough time, just divorced his wife, Brenda, and sounds a bit lost on the phone, but he's adjusting. Then there's Mark, my eldest. He was always difficult. Impulsive, stubborn, a bit of a fibber even as a child. Arthur was better at handling his temper. After Arthur was gone, I sometimes just didn't have the energy, or maybe the patience. Maybe I made mistakes with him. Or maybe he was just born that way. Mark works as an insurance appraiser and married Sophia when he was 26. She's the type who fancies herself high society, but she's just an administrator at a gym. They have 2 kids, Alex, 15, and Sarah, 13. Moving in with them wasn't something I planned. After I retired, my little house was finally paid off. My pension was modest, but I managed, even doing some consulting. Then, last fall, a flood. Basement, first floor, everything ruined. Insurance barely covered it. All my savings gone, just enough left for utilities. I was actually looking at my grandmother's silver, wondering what it was worth, when Mark called. "Mom," he said, sounding strangely concerned, "how about you move in with us? The kids miss you and Sophia, and I would feel better with you around. We could even rent out your house for some extra income." I hesitated. Mark and I had always been distant, and Sophia and I barely exchanged 2 words at family gatherings. But he kept pushing, and eventually I caved. I sold most of my furniture, rented out my house for just enough to cover taxes and insurance, and showed up at their San Antonio doorstep with 2 suitcases. The first few days? Better than I expected. Sophia was unusually friendly, showed me my guest room, even cleared a space in the fridge. Alex and Sarah, who I usually saw once a year, were wary but polite. "We're so glad you're here, Mom," Mark said, hugging me. "Don't worry about a thing. Just enjoy yourself." But that enjoy yourself didn't last. On the 3rd evening, as we relaxed in the backyard, Mark casually dropped the bombshell. "You know, Mom, Sophia and I work a lot, and the kids are teenagers now. They need supervision. Would you mind picking them up and making dinner sometimes? Just a couple of times a week when we have late shifts." Of course, I agreed. I was living there for free after all. It was the least I could do. A couple of times a week quickly became every single day. Sophia suddenly needed to develop professionally, signing up for manicure, pedicure, and then mental balance yoga classes. By the end of that first month, I was doing everything: breakfast, lunch, dinner, laundry, ironing, cleaning, school runs, homework help, extracurricular chauffeuring. And my opinion? Worthless. Any initiative from me was met with irritation. One night, I made my mother's famous casserole. "What is this disgusting stuff?" Sophia grimaced, barely glancing. "You know I don't eat gluten." I stammered, "But there's no gluten. Just vegetables, a little cheese, and I said I don't eat it," she snapped, turning to the kids. "Pizza?" They cheered. Mark didn't even look up from his phone. Another time, I bought Alex a new shirt for a school event. His old ones were so worn. "What are you doing?" Mark roared when Alex showed it off. "Are you trying to make it look like we can't provide for our own son? Give that rag back and stay out of our business." I tried to explain, I just wanted to help. "It's not cheap junk, it's good quality, who cares?" He threw the shirt on the floor. "We don't need your charity." He didn't speak to me for a week. Sophia constantly made snide remarks about certain pensioners sticking their noses where they don't belong. The worst part? My grandkids absorbed their parents' attitude like sponges. At first, they at least said hello. Now, they pretended I didn't exist. Alex, thinking I couldn't hear, called me an old hag. Sarah wrinkled her nose, saying I smelled old. I tried to talk to Mark. He just waved me off. "Stop being so dramatic, Mom. You live here for free. Be thankful." My only solace was those calls from Clara and Leo. Clara always started by asking how I was, listening carefully to my guarded answers. I didn't complain. I didn't want to create family drama. But I think she sensed something. "Mom, you don't have to live with Mark," she'd say. "David and I would love for you to move in." I'd joke, "Portland's too damp for my joints, dear. Besides, you have enough on your plate with the kids." Leo, less perceptive, always offered money. "Mom, I can send more. Just tell me what you need." "I have everything I need, son," I'd reply. "You buy yourself something nice." Compared to those warm conversations, life at Mark's felt even more oppressive. I was an unwelcome guest, tolerated only for the work I did. Sophia openly bragged to friends about her free housekeeper and babysitter. If I dared ask Mark for anything, a ride to the clinic, for example, he'd sigh and roll his eyes. "Don't I have anything else to do? Call a taxi." By the end of the third month, I was seriously considering going into debt to break my rental lease and move back to my little, flooded house. But then, the phone rang and everything changed. It was a Tuesday about 5 p.m. Sophia wasn't home, the kids were at practice, Mark wouldn't be back until 8. I was cooking dinner when my ancient phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I almost hung up. Scammers are relentless. But something stopped me. "Eleanor, this is Mr. Sterling. I don't know if you remember your old boss." His voice was weaker, but unmistakably his. "Of course I do, Mr. Sterling," I said, surprised. "How are you?" "Been better, Eleanor. Been better." He sighed. "Listen, we need to talk. It's important. Can you come to the office tomorrow at 10? Tomorrow was Wednesday. I had to pick up Sarah at 2 and take her to piano. I hesitated. "This is really important, Eleanor." His voice was almost pleading. "I wouldn't bother you if there was anyone else I could ask." "All right, Mr. Sterling," I decided. "I'll be there." "Thank you, Eleanor. And be prepared for a serious conversation." He hung up, leaving me utterly baffled. We hadn't spoken since I retired. What could be so urgent? And why did his voice sound so doomed? The next morning, cool even for late April, I was up at 5, hours before anyone else, preparing breakfast for the family, getting myself ready. Thoughts of Mr. Sterling kept me awake most of the night. Sterling Construction's office was in the same building I'd worked in for decades, but inside, it was transformed. Glass walls, trendy coffee machines, young, busy people with tablets. The reception desk had a girl with bright red hair and piercings, a far cry from the stern Mrs. Jenkins of my day. "I have an appointment with Mr. Sterling," I told her, "Eleanor Vance." She looked up, surprised, scanning me. "He's waiting for you. 4th floor, last door." As the elevator ascended, I nervously tugged at my old tweed jacket. It was decades old, but still decent. I always took care of my things. Mr. Sterling's office was also new, spacious, with a panoramic view of San Antonio. But Mr. Sterling himself, he looked terrible. Gaunt, completely gray, deep shadows under his eyes. When he stood to greet me, I noticed a slight limp. "Eleanor," he exclaimed, with a warmth I hadn't expected. "How wonderful to see you. Please sit." He came around his massive desk, sitting next to me, abandoning the formal distance of a boss. "You haven't changed a bit," he smiled. "But you, Mr. Sterling," I started, but bit my tongue. "I look terrible, I know." He waved a hand. "Pancreatic cancer. Late stage. Doctors give me 3 to 6 months." I gasped, pressing a hand to my lips. Mr. Sterling had always been the picture of vitality. Seeing him so diminished was heartbreaking. "I'm so sorry," I murmured. "Don't be," he said, a weak smile playing on his lips. "I've had a good life, Eleanor. Built a business, raised a daughter, even played with my grandkids. But that's not why you're here." He paused, gathering strength. "The company is in danger. After my diagnosis, I started preparing to sell. I want my employees protected and my family to get a fair deal. But my CFO, Patrick Reed, you remember him?" I nodded. Patrick was a slick, young Wall Street type Mr. Sterling had hired a few years before I retired. "He's cooking the books," Mr. Sterling continued, lowering his voice. "Hiding assets, underreporting profits, creating fictitious debts. He's setting it up to buy the company for pennies after I'm gone. I have proof, but I need someone who understands all the schemes, who can fix this before the sale." "And you thought of me?" I asked, astonished. "But I've been retired for 3 years. Everything's changed. New programs." Mr. Sterling covered my hand with his, dry and hot. "You're the best accountant I ever worked with. Sharp mind, tremendous integrity. I trust you more than anyone. Listen," he squeezed my hand tighter. "I'm offering you the position of Chief Financial Officer, with full access, signing authority, and a salary of $75,000 a month." I gasped. $75,000. Tens of times more than I'd ever earned. "That's impossible," I breathed. "You could hire anyone from Wall Street for that kind of money." "That's where Patrick came from," he said with a bitter smile. "No. I need someone I can trust. Someone who knows this company inside out and won't sell it out for personal gain." He handed me a folder. "Here's a 6-month contract. Enough time to get everything in order and prepare for an honest sale. Take a look. Think about it, but don't drag your feet. Time is against us." My hands trembled as I took the folder. It felt unreal. $75,000 a month, even for 6 months, was more than I'd made in the last 10 years of my career. "What about Patrick?" I asked. "He just gave up his position. I fired him this morning." Mr. Sterling allowed himself a faint smile. "Security's packing his things. He'll threaten to sue, of course, but I have enough evidence of his shenanigans that he'll prefer to leave quietly." "I need to think about it," I said, still reeling. "Of course," he nodded. "But I hope you'll agree. You're the only one who can save what I've built my whole life." I returned home in a daze. The folder with the contract felt hot in my hands. 1,000 thoughts spun in my head. This was a chance not just for financial freedom, but to help a man who'd always been kind to me. But could I, at my age, handle such responsibility? I paused outside Mark's house, catching my breath. I needed an excuse for my absence. Sarah had probably missed her piano lesson and complained. I was right. The moment I stepped inside, Sophia was furious. "Where have you been?" she snapped. "Sarah had to take the bus. She missed her piano lesson." "I had to go to the clinic," I lied, not wanting to mention Mr. Sterling's offer. "A cardiologist appointment opened up, and I'd been waiting 2 months." "And you couldn't warn me?" Sophia crossed her arms. "I missed an important client meeting because of you. I had to take time off to pick up Sarah. I tried to call, but my phone died." I continued inventing. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. It won't happen again." "Like hell it won't," she snorted. "Mark is going to be furious." And indeed, that evening I endured a long, angry tirade from my son. My irresponsibility, my ingratitude. "We took you in, gave you a roof over your head, and what do? He shouted, spittle flying. You let us down at the first opportunity. Mark, I tried to explain. I don't care about your explanations. He slammed his fist on the table. Either you do your job, or pack your things and go back to your hole. I lowered my head. Arguing with him was useless, especially when he was like this. Besides, my mind was on the contract in my bag. That night, when the house was quiet, I carefully studied the documents. The terms were beyond generous: the incredible salary, premium health insurance, a company car, a bonus for a successful sale. The contract was clean, no hidden clauses, even compensation if they terminated early. I spent a sleepless night weighing it all. By morning, my decision was made. I would accept. It was a chance to help Mr. Sterling, yes, but also a chance to reclaim my own life. I called him first thing, as soon as Mark and Sophia left for work and the kids went to school. I accept, I said, no preamble. Great. Mr. Sterling sounded relieved. When can you start? Tomorrow. I'll see you at the office at 9, Eleanor. Thank you. After hanging up, I considered my next move. Should I tell my family? After yesterday's scene, absolutely not. I could already hear Mark and Sophia demanding money for repairs, a new car, private school for the kids. No, I needed to get on my feet first, save for my own place, then decide. For a cover story, I invented volunteering at the local library, sorting books, helping visitors. It sounded plausible enough for someone my age. That evening, I casually mentioned my volunteering at dinner. The library? Mark asked, mouth full. Why? So I don't sit home all day, I shrugged. Need something to do, be around people. Who's going to pick up the kids and cook dinner? Sophia immediately chimed in. I arranged to work part-time, I lied. I'll be done by 2, so I'll have time. Mark and Sophia exchanged glances, clearly unhappy, but couldn't openly object. It was unpaid, after all. Just don't let it interfere with your duties here, Mark warned. We didn't take you in so you could entertain yourself with books. Of course, dear, I replied meekly, biting back the truth about my new salary. The next day, I started at Sterling Construction. The first few weeks were a blur. Learning new software, deciphering Patrick's convoluted schemes, earning the trust of skeptical young colleagues. But slowly, it came back to me. My decades of experience, my knowledge of the company's history, my old connections, they were invaluable. Accounting had always been my forte, and Patrick's schemes, though clever, were not impenetrable. Mr. Sterling, despite his failing health, came in every other day, spending hours bringing me up to speed, supporting my decisions before the board. You're doing even better than I expected, he said after a particularly successful meeting where we presented a debt restructuring plan. I knew I was right about you, Eleanor. His words meant more than any amount of money. For the first time in ages, I felt needed, competent, respected. It was intoxicating, especially compared to home. At home, things only worsened. Sophia, annoyed that my volunteering now cut into my household duties, became even more nitpicky and sarcastic. You've oversalted the soup again, she'd grimace at dinner. And the laundry isn't ironed properly. Maybe less time with your books, more time taking care of the family that took you in. Mark echoed her complaints. Mom, you've been so distracted. Forgot my favorite cheese yesterday. Didn't write down a message from my boss today. It's all because of your stupid library. Maybe you should stop playing charity. The grandchildren were the worst. Now, knowing their parents wouldn't reprimand them, they dropped all pretense of politeness. One day, I caught Sarah rummaging through my bag. What are you doing? I asked, trying to hide my alarm. There was a pay slip in the bag. Looking for money, she replied cheekily. I need a new phone case. Sarah, you can't take other people's things without asking, I said, gently taking my bag. If you need money, ask your parents. What could I possibly take from you? She snorted. You have nothing. You're a bum. I froze. Such blunt rudeness. Before I could respond, Sophia entered. What's going on here? She demanded. Grandma won't give me money for a cover. Sarah complained. And she hides her stupid bag from us. She was rummaging through my things, I tried to explain. What secrets could you possibly have? Sophia interrupted. You live in our house, you eat our food. If my daughter asks you for something, you help her. No buts. Sophia cut me off. Give her the money for the cover, since she's asking. I don't think you have anything more important to spend it on. I silently took out my wallet, handing Sarah a $20 bill, money I'd saved for new tights. She snatched it with a triumphant grin and ran off. And remember, Sophia poked me with her finger. No secrets in my house. Got it. After she left, I sank onto the bed, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I needed a more secure place for my work documents. Another time, Alex accidentally spilled orange juice on my favorite blouse, which I just had dry cleaned for an important investor meeting. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said with feigned remorse, looking too pleased with himself. I didn't notice. "It's okay," I sighed, knowing it wasn't an accident. "Come on, Mom," Mark interjected as I tried to wash the stain. "It's just an old rag. You can buy yourself a new one someday." They both laughed, father and son, exchanging knowing glances. I said nothing, but inside, a knot of hurt and anger tightened. That night, lying in bed, I finally allowed myself to truly think about how my life would change with my new salary. I could rent a beautiful apartment, buy a car, travel. I could help Clara and Leo, spoil my grandkids Max and Lily. I could cut off Mark and his family completely. It was an intoxicating, dizzying freedom. I fell asleep with a smile, imagining Mark's face when he found out the truth. But in the morning, common sense prevailed. I had to be cautious. First, save enough money. Find a place. Maybe consult a lawyer about my will. I didn't want Mark to get a penny of my money after I died. In the meantime, I had to endure. Every morning, off to the library, working myself to exhaustion at the office, then returning home to cook, clean, and listen to complaints. It felt like a double life, successful CFO by day, powerless servant by night. It was exhausting, but the thought that it would soon end gave me strength. "Hang in there, Eleanor," Mr. Sterling encouraged me one day, noticing the circles under my eyes. "You're doing an incredible job. Just a little more, and we'll get the company out of this crisis." I smiled gratefully, not telling him about my home life. He had enough worries. His health was failing fast. It seemed he was holding on purely by will to see his business saved. At home, new trials. Sophia suddenly decided I should also clean the garage and backyard. "You sit in your library all day," she said. "Consider it compensation for your absence." "But I already do all the housework," I argued. "And the library is work, even if unpaid. Who needs your fussing with books?" Sophia snapped. "You live here for free. Be nice and work for it." I gritted my teeth and said nothing. My weekdays blurred into an endless marathon. Up at 5 a.m., breakfast for everyone, school lunches, then quietly out the door while they still slept. On the way to the office, a quick stop at a cafe for a coffee, a small luxury I could now afford. By 8:30, I was at my desk, diving into financial reports. The work was harder than I'd anticipated. Patrick had left a real mess: fake documents, hidden accounts, confusing transactions. But methodically, step by step, I untangled the knot. "Eleanor, you're a miracle," Mr. Sterling said, looking over my reports. "You've done more in 3 weeks than Patrick did in 3 years." I just shrugged. I just know the company, but inside, I was beaming. By early June, we'd uncovered most of Patrick's schemes, restored supplier relations, recovered siphoned assets. The hardest part was over. With my first paycheck, I allowed myself some small pleasures. A new smartphone, replacing my ancient flip phone. Some nice cosmetics. A salon visit for a modern haircut and color to hide the gray. The rest went into a separate account for my own place. These small changes didn't escape Sophia's eagle eye. "Did you get your hair done?" she asked one evening, squinting. "And is that a new phone?" "Yes," I said, trying to sound casual. There was a volunteer event at the library, free haircuts from students. And Clara gave me the phone for my birthday. "Your birthday's in November," Sophia remarked dryly. "Belated gift," I quickly replied. She was saving up. Sophia clearly didn't believe me, but she didn't press. She was more interested in whether I'd made the lasagna she'd requested. At the office, I was a different person. A respected professional. Young employees, initially skeptical, now came to me for advice. Even the board members who'd initially questioned my appointment started acknowledging my confidence. Mrs. Vance, you've done an amazing job restructuring the debt with Gardner Investments, Mr. Harrison, the most conservative director, told me one day. I think we all underestimated you. I nodded, accepting the compliment, and smiled inwardly, imagining Mark's reaction if he heard his mother spoken of with such respect. At home, the tension escalated. Mark and Sophia seemed determined to extract every last drop from me. My duties now included gardening, walking the dog, helping Alex with math. Mom, you're an accountant, Mark would say, ignoring my protests of exhaustion. Explain these fractions. I don't have time. And I do. I finally snapped. Mark stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. Of course, you have time, he said slowly. What else do you do? Your volunteer work is just a hobby we graciously allow. I'm a person, too, I said quietly. I have my own things to do, my own needs. What other needs? He snorted. You have a roof over your head, food to eat. What more do you want? Instead of complaining, you should be grateful we took you in. His conviction was so sincere, I realized arguing was pointless. He truly believed he was doing me a huge favor, and I should be eternally grateful. I said nothing, swallowing my resentment, and went to help Alex with math. The boy greeted me with undisguised contempt. Don't think I'm going to listen to some old woman. Just do my homework for me. I took a deep breath. Just a little longer. Mr. Sterling noticed. One day, after a meeting, he kept me in his office. Is something wrong, Eleanor? He asked with genuine concern. You look exhausted. I wanted to brush it off, say I was fine. But suddenly, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I told him everything, my life with Mark and Sophia, the constant humiliation, the impossible double life. He listened silently, intently. When I finished, he shook his head. Eleanor, why do you put up with this? You now have the means to live on your own. I'm saving for a place, I explained. I want a nest egg before I take the plunge. That's wise, he nodded. But don't forget, life is too short to waste on those who don't appreciate you. His words struck a chord, especially coming from him. Mr. Sterling was fading. Every day could be his last, yet he kept coming in, solving problems, planning for a future he wouldn't see. You're right to want financial independence, he continued. But don't let them break your spirit. You're a wonderful woman, Eleanor, and you deserve respect. After that conversation, something shifted in me. I still did my chores, but I no longer tried to please Mark and Sophia. If their requests were excessive, I calmly refused. If the children were rude, I didn't swallow it. I firmly told them it was unacceptable. This didn't go unnoticed. Sophia complained to Mark that I'd let myself go. He reprimanded me, but I responded politely, without my former submissiveness. What's wrong with you, Mom? He asked one night when I refused to iron all his shirts. You've changed. I'm just a human being, Mark, I replied. And I have my limits. Are we asking too much of you? He asked, offended. After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. What do you mean? He looked genuinely surprised. We gave you a roof, food, a family. Without us, you'd be alone in your shack, counting pennies. In his eyes, I saw absolute conviction. For Mark, this wasn't manipulation, but fact. He truly believed he was doing me a grand favor. For the first time, I realized the depth of the chasm between us. My own son didn't see me as a person, but as a function, a tool for his convenience. No words could change that. From that moment, I began counting the days. Every morning, leaving for work, I'd mentally tick off another day. Every evening, returning to Mark's house, this is temporary. My inner detachment must have been obvious, because their attitude worsened. Sophia stopped pretending to be polite. Alex and Sarah openly ignored me. Mark spoke to me with increasing irritation, as if I were a disobedient child. In mid-July, with enough money saved for my first month's rent, it all finally happened. It was Saturday, my only day off. The office had a cleaning day, and I'd told my family I was doing inventory at the library. I planned to spend the day looking at apartments. But Mark and Sophia had other plans. Mom, my son announced at breakfast. Sophia and I want to see this new movie. Will you watch the kids? I have some things planned, I replied cautiously. What things? Sophia didn't look up from her phone. You have the day off. You could be doing something useful, spending time with your grandchildren. I have a doctor's appointment, I lied, knowing they wouldn't believe me anyway. The orthopedist for my arthritis. I've been waiting 2 months. Reschedule it, Mark shrugged. It's not that urgent. I can't reschedule, I said firmly. The doctor is very busy. The next appointment won't be until September. So what? Sophia interjected. You can wait. You won't fall apart. We want to go to the movies. My knees hurt already. I decided to stand my ground. I need to see the doctor. God, Mom. Mark rolled his eyes. Always your health problems. Why can't you just help your family when they ask? I help you every day. My patience snapped. I cook, clean, pick up the kids, help with homework. Can't I have one day to myself? To yourself? Mark sounded genuinely surprised. What would you do to yourself? You're retired. You don't have a job, hobbies, or friends. Your life is us, your family. I have my own life, I said, quietly but firmly. And my own needs. What needs does an old woman have? Sophia snorted, still on her phone. The main need at your age is to be useful to your family, not a burden. I looked at her, then at Mark, who was nodding in agreement. The conversation was useless. They truly didn't see me as a person with my own desires. I'm sorry, but I can't babysit tonight, I said, getting up. I have to go to the doctor. Didn't you hear what we said? Mark's voice rose. You're not going anywhere. You're staying with the kids. No, I said, for the first time, truly firm. I'm not staying. Mark's face turned scarlet. He jumped up, towering over me. What do you mean no? You live in my house. You eat my food. You'll do what I tell you. I'm your mother, not your servant. I tried to speak calmly, though I was trembling. And I have a right to my own time. What right? Mark roared. You live here out of the goodness of our hearts. Do you understand? If it weren't for us, you'd be living in your hole, counting pennies until you died. His words hit harder than I expected. Not because they were true. I knew I could afford a better life than is now, but because they laid bare his contempt. I'm leaving, I said, strangely calm. I'm going to see the doctor now. We'll talk tonight, when you've calmed down. I turned to leave the kitchen. Mark grabbed my arm, squeezing my wrist painfully. You're not going anywhere. I told you, you're staying with the kids. Let go. I struggled. You're hurting me. Hurting you. He laughed, a chilling, malicious sound. You don't know what hurting is yet, you ungrateful old hag. We took you in, gave you a home, and instead of gratitude, you throw a scene. Sophia looked up from her phone as if nothing unusual was happening. Let me go, Mark. I repeated. Right now. Or what? He squeezed harder. What are you going to do, you beggar? Where will you go without us? Who needs you? Something snapped inside me. Years of hurt, humiliation, and rejection boiled over. I ripped my hand away and, to my own surprise, screamed, I need myself. I'm a human being, not a thing. I'm your mother who raised you alone after your father died. Who worked 2 jobs so you could go to college. And this is how you thank me. By treating me like a servant. By humiliating me in front of my own grandchildren. My screams seemed to stun everyone. Sophia even looked up from her phone. The children froze, mouths agape. But Mark quickly regained his composure. How dare you raise your voice to me in my own house, he hissed, grabbing his mug of hot tea from the table. He didn't finish. Instead, he threw the hot tea in my face. Scalding liquid ran down my cheeks, neck, and chest, soaking my blouse. I screamed in pain and shock. Get out, you beggar. Mark yelled, pushing me toward the door. Get out of my house. You're no longer part of this family. You're nobody. Do you hear me? Nobody. Stunned, my face and clothes wet with tea, I backed toward the door. Mark's eyes burned with a fury I'd never seen. Behind him, Sophia and the children stood, unperturbed, indifferent. As if this was a normal family argument, not the expulsion of an elderly woman. Pack your things and get out. Mark continued to bellow. I'll give you 10 minutes, then I'll throw everything onto the street. I turned silently and went to my room. My hands shook. My face burned from the tea and the humiliation. But inside, I felt a strange emptiness. As if a final, crucial thread connecting me to this house, to these people, had finally been severed. I quickly gathered essentials into a small bag, documents, phone, a few changes of clothes. The rest I could get later. Or by noon. The priority was simply to get out. Passing the kitchen, I heard Sophia say, "Maybe you shouldn't have been so harsh. She is your mother." "I don't care," Mark snapped. "She crossed the line. Let her go and live her own life. We'll see how she manages without us." I quietly opened the front door and stepped outside. It was a sunny morning. Neighbors were gardening, someone walked a dog. A typical summer day in the suburbs. I walked slowly down the sidewalk, not looking back. My face still burned. My blouse clung uncomfortably. But strangely, I felt lighter than I had in months. A heavy weight had been lifted. Where to now? I thought, stopping at the corner. I had money, but no place to stay. I could call Clara or Leo, but I didn't want to drag them into this. I took out my phone and called a taxi to the nearest hotel. I could afford it now. And then there would be a new life. One with no place for those who didn't know how to appreciate and respect others. Sitting on a bench, waiting for the taxi, I caught myself smiling. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. The Riverview Hotel was a godsend. My spacious room, air-conditioned, with a soft bed and a large bathroom, felt like a palace after Mark's cramped guest room. First, a long, hot shower, washing away not just the sticky tea, but all the negativity of my past life. Red burn marks remained, thankfully not serious. The hotel manager, noticing my condition, offered a first aid kit, and I carefully applied healing ointment. Then I sat on the bed, finally allowing myself to process it all. My own son kicked me out, poured hot tea on me, called me a beggar, threw me out like trash. All in front of his wife and children, who did nothing. Strangely, instead of despair, I felt only emptiness and a slight bitterness. The last thread to Mark had snapped, freeing me from any illusions. I dialed Mr. Sterling's number. Despite it being his day off, he answered instantly. "Eleanor, is something wrong?" His voice, full of concern, touched me deeply. Holding back tears, I briefly told him what had happened. "My God," he exhaled. "That's terrible. Are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" "No, just minor burns," I replied. "I'm at the Riverview Hotel." "Stay there," he said firmly. "I'll call my friend at the real estate agency. We'll find you a proper place, not just temporary shelter." After talking to Mr. Sterling, I felt better. A job, money, prospects for a home. Not bad for a woman my age, just thrown out by her son. My next call was to Clara. I didn't want to disturb her Saturday, but I had to tell at least one of my kids before Mark gave his version. "Mom?" Clara answered, surprised. "You rarely call on Saturdays." "I'm not living with Mark anymore," I said, cutting straight to it. "What? Why? What happened?" I told her everything, trying to be objective, not to exaggerate. Though certain details, like the hot tea, still made her gasp in outrage. "Oh my God, Mom, that's awful," she cried. "Do you want David and me to come get you? Or you can fly to Portland." "No, honey," I said gently. "I'll be fine. I have a job and money for housing." "A job?" Clara asked. "You mean volunteering at the library? But does that pay?" Then I knew it was time. "Actually, I don't work at the library," I confessed. "I'm the chief financial officer at Sterling Construction. I make $75,000 a month." Silence. Then Clara burst out laughing. "Mom, you're joking, right? $75,000 a month. That's insane." "It's true," I said calmly. "Mr. Sterling offered me the job 2 months ago. I kept it a secret from Mark and his family because, well, you know why." We talked for almost an hour. Clara bombarded me with questions, offered to help again. I assured her I could manage, but promised to keep her updated. After Clara, I called Leo. My youngest son's reaction was more subdued. He wasn't emotional, but I sensed his genuine outrage at Mark's behavior and his relief that I was safe. The next morning, Mr. Sterling called. "Eleanor, my friend Daniel at the real estate agency found something special." It's an apartment in River Heights, a new gated community with a pool and spa. 2 bedrooms, Riverview. If you're interested, he can show it to you today. I agreed, though I doubted such a place was in my budget. River Heights was one of San Antonio's most prestigious complexes. Daniel, an energetic man in his 50s, met me at the entrance. The grounds were stunning, manicured lawns, fountains, flowering shrubs. The apartment itself was simply breathtaking. A spacious living room with panoramic windows overlooking the river, a modern kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, even a small study. Daniel named the price, and I was shocked. It was well within my means. The owner is going abroad for 3 years, he explained. He wants a reliable tenant. I told him about you, CFO of a reputable company, recommended by Mr. Sterling himself. He agrees to a long-term lease at a fixed rate, and you even have first refusal if you decide to buy. The next day, I signed the lease, and by evening, my few belongings from the hotel were moved in. The empty rooms looked a bit cold, but that was temporary. I now had the means to furnish it to my liking. On Monday, I returned to work with renewed energy. My colleagues noticed. I looked more focused, more vibrant. Over the next 2 weeks, I immersed myself in my new life. Days at the office, nights furnishing the apartment. A designer sofa, an orthopedic mattress, a natural wood dining set. Each new item solidified my new identity, a successful, independent woman who could live exactly as she chose. One evening, working late with Mr. Sterling, discussing strategy for upcoming buyer negotiations, he suddenly asked, "How do you get to work, Eleanor?" "By taxi," I replied. "It's convenient from River Heights." "Why don't you buy a car?" he suggested. "Your contract includes a company car, but you haven't used it." I realized he was right. With everything else, I hadn't even thought about it. "I haven't driven in years," I admitted. After Arthur died, we only had 1 car, and Mark took it when he left for college. I just got used to public transport. "But you can drive?" Mr. Sterling pressed. "Of course, I just need practice." "Then it's settled," he smiled, his characteristic determined smile. "Tomorrow, we're picking out a car. And not just any boring runabout. Something befitting your new status." The next day, despite his failing health, Mr. Sterling personally drove me to a Jaguar dealership. My jaw dropped. "Mr. Sterling, this is too much," I protested. "I don't need such an expensive car." "Eleanor," he said seriously, "I won't be around much longer. I want to do good for people who deserve it. Let me do this." The sales manager, recognizing Mr. Sterling, greeted us warmly and led us into the showroom, where gleaming cars, each worth more than I'd earned in my entire life, awaited. "You need something elegant, but with character," the manager said, looking me up and down. "May I suggest the F-Type? Our sports convertible. Amazing handling, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, absolute comfort." He led us to a dark blue beauty with a cream leather interior. It was a work of art. The manager arranged a test drive. 20 minutes later, we were on the road in the F-Type with an instructor. Mr. Sterling stayed behind. He wasn't feeling well enough for the excitement. I was uncertain at first. Too many buttons, sensitive pedals, too powerful an engine. But slowly, with the instructor's guidance, I got the hang of it. And then, on the highway, truly feeling what that car could do, a wave of pure delight washed over me. "You're doing great," the instructor praised. "For someone who hasn't driven in a long time, you have excellent reflexes." Back in the showroom, I knew I had to have that car. It embodied my new life, bright, fast-paced, full of possibilities. 2 days later, I was the owner of a new Jaguar F-Type, a dark blue beauty proudly parked at River Heights. The company paid for it as part of my compensation, even arranged intensive driving lessons. The world had opened up. My own apartment, a prestigious job, a luxury car. I felt 10 years younger. I was bursting with energy. Long walks along the waterfront, joining the pool, even yoga classes for seniors. My physical transformation continued. I updated my wardrobe, choosing elegant, modern clothes that flattered, instead of hiding my figure. A stylist gave me a new haircut and taught me natural makeup that refreshed my face without looking vulgar. You've literally blossomed, Mr. Sterling remarked when I showed up at the office in a new lavender suit, my hair perfectly styled. You look like you've aged 15 years younger. I feel like it, I admitted. It's like I've started life over again. And it was true. For the first time in years, I felt like me. Not just a mother, a grandmother, a housekeeper, but a complete person with my own desires, ambitions, and right to happiness. I talked regularly with Clara and Leo, who were thrilled with the changes. Clara even flew in for a weekend to see my new apartment and, of course, my car. My goodness, Mom, you look amazing, she exclaimed, hugging me at the airport. And that's your car? Seriously? We had a wonderful weekend, dining out, talking about everything. Clara admitted she'd never seen me so happy. You know, I always worried about you, she said, as we sat on my balcony, sipping wine, watching the sunset. I was afraid you'd end up alone, counting every penny. And then, when you moved in with Mark, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't either, I admitted, not until I had a chance to see it from the outside. After Clara left, Leo visited. He took 3 days off work from Chicago. When he saw my new life, he just shook his head, respectfully. Wow, Mom. You showed us all up. We had a wonderful time. Practical as ever, Leo helped with technical things, setting up my computer, installing a security system, even hanging shelves. You know, he said as we said goodbye at the airport, I always knew you were special, but you've exceeded all expectations. His words touched me deeply. For the first time, I felt my children, at least 2 of them, saw me not just as a mother, but as a person, with my own achievements and strengths. Work was also going well. Mr. Sterling and I completed the company's restructuring and began negotiations with potential buyers. Mr. Sterling's condition worsened daily. He came to the office only once a week now, spending most of his time working from home or in the hospital. But his mind remained sharp, and we continued to function as a well-oiled team. In early August, Mr. Sterling called me to his home. He was significantly weaker now, confined to bed. Eleanor, he said, as I sat by his bed with a folder of documents. Any news on potential buyers? Yes, and good news, I smiled. Bradford Industries has raised its offer to $120 million. Their lawyers are drafting the contract now. Excellent, he smiled weakly. I hope I live to see the signing. Don't say that, I said, covering his hand. You'll see your company pass into good hands. We discussed business. Then the conversation unexpectedly turned personal. How's your son? Mr. Sterling asked. You didn't tell me if you've had any contact with him since that incident. None, I shook my head. He called a few times, left messages, but I didn't call back. That's the right thing to do, he nodded. But you know, my daughter told me something interesting. Her husband works at the insurance company where your Mark used to work. Turns out he was fired for a serious mistake in the reports that cost the company a major client. I see. I felt a slight pang of regret, nothing more. That's not all, Mr. Sterling continued. Rumor has it he's in serious financial trouble. The bank is threatening to foreclose on his house for late payments. He and his wife are trying to sell it quickly, but the market isn't favorable. I was silent, unsure what to say. On one hand, I felt a flicker of sympathy. He was still my son. On the other, a sense of higher justice. I'm not telling you this to gloat, Mr. Sterling said gently, noticing my confusion. Just thought you should know. Maybe it's time to get your things out of his house before it's too late. Maybe you're right, I replied thoughtfully. There are photos, letters, a few mementos I didn't have time to take. Then don't put it off, he advised. And don't let him hurt you again. You deserve better. That evening, I called Clara. She confirmed Mr. Sterling's words, adding details. Mom, Sophia called me last week. They're desperate. Mark can't find a new job. He was fired in a scandal and got no references. They're selling their house, car, even furniture. Sophia asked if I could lend them money. And what did you say? That we're in a difficult situation ourselves right now, Clara lied smoothly. David's promotion is on hold because of restructuring, and the kids, you know how much education costs these days. I know, dear, I said gently. You did the right thing. Mom, Clara's voice softened. Don't you think you should help them? I know Mark did a terrible thing, but he's still your son. I thought about it. Did I really want to help Mark after everything? The humiliation, the eviction, the tea? I don't know, I replied. Honestly, I need to think about it. But first, I want to get my things. I'll call him tomorrow to arrange it. After Clara, I sat on my balcony, watching San Antonio's lights, thinking about the twists of fate. For months ago, a powerless pensioner, treated like a servant. Now, a successful CFO with a luxury apartment and a sports car. And Mark, who'd treated me so cruelly, was in despair. Was this justice? Or coincidence? What should I do? Help him, or let him face the consequences? In the morning, I called Mark. He answered almost immediately, a strange excitement in his voice. Mom, is that you? Yes, Mark, I said calmly. I'd like to pick up my things. When can I come? Of course. Of course, he said with unusual eagerness. You can come anytime. I'll be home all day. Then I'll come tomorrow around 11, I said. Okay, Mom. And I wanted to say, I'm really glad you called. We missed you. I almost laughed. Not long ago, he called me a beggar. Now, he missed me? Had Clara told him about my job, or was he so desperate he'd humble himself to get financial help? See you tomorrow, Mark, I said, hanging up before he could say anything more sentimental. The next morning, I dressed carefully. An elegant ivory-sheath dress, low heels, minimalist gold jewelry. Makeup done, hair styled. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The confident, well-groomed woman was a world away from the downtrodden old woman I'd been. At exactly 10:30, I got into my Jaguar and headed for Mark's house. The weather was beautiful, bright August sunshine, a light breeze. Perfect for a drive with the top down. The car glided smoothly, attracting admiring glances. Who would have thought, at 68, I'd be driving a sports convertible? Turning onto Mark Street, my heart quickened. I hadn't been here since that day. The neighborhood looked the same, neat houses, trimmed lawns, bikes on driveways. But I looked at it now as an outsider. Mark's house stood out, and not in a good way. The lawn was unkempt, oil stains on the driveway, and a squat for sale sign stood prominently. I parked the Jaguar right in front, turned off the engine, and paused. What did I feel? Strangely, almost nothing. No anger, no resentment, no desire for revenge. Just a calm certainty that this stage of my life was over. I was here to close the chapter. I got out, straightened my shoulders, and walked to the front door. Before I could ring, it swung open, and Mark appeared. He'd lost weight, looked haggard. Sunken eyes, dark circles, more gray hair. Mom, he exclaimed with exaggerated joy. I'm so glad to see you. He stepped forward as if to hug me, but I took a small step back, and he awkwardly lowered his arms. Hello, Mark, I said calmly. I've come for my things. Yes, of course, he nodded, his smile forced. Come in, please. Sophia made tea and cookies. I walked inside, noticing how much had changed. Some furniture gone, pictures off the walls. What remained looked neglected. A strange smell hung in the air, stale food, dust, desolation. Sophia waited in the living room, wearing what she likely considered her best dress, a bit outdated, unflattering. Alex and Sarah sat nearby, unusually quiet, clearly embarrassed. Eleanor, Sophia stepped forward with a fake smile. How wonderful to see you. You look stunning. Her voice held genuine surprise. Her gaze appraised my outfit, my hair, my jewelry, so different from my former self. Thank you, Sophia, I nodded. You too. You look well. That last was a blatant lie. Sophia looked exhausted, unkempt. Please sit down, Mark said, gesturing to a chair. Would you like some tea or coffee? No, thank you. I remained standing. I don't have much time. I just wanted to pick up my things. Yes, of course, Mark rubbed his hands nervously. I packed everything into boxes. They're in the garage. But maybe you'd like to stay for a while? We haven't seen each other in so long. And whose fault is that? I asked, not raising my voice, but firmly. Mark blushed, lowering his eyes. Mom, we're all very sorry about what happened. I wasn't myself. I said terrible things. It's unforgivable, I know, but maybe we could start over. I looked at my son. His eyes showed despair, but not remorse. He was a drowning man clutching at straws. Mark, I said calmly, let's not pretend. You found out about my new job from Clara or Leo and decided I could help you out with money. That's why you suddenly remembered your family ties. What? No. He feigned indignation. How could you think that? We all missed you. Right, kids? Alex and Sarah nodded in unison, but their faces were impassive. They were clearly forced into the charade. Mom, Mark continued, clearly changing tactics. I heard you're working at your old company now. That's great. I always knew you were a great professional. And is that your car outside? Impressive. Yes, that's my Jaguar. I allowed myself a slight smile. A company car. Part of my compensation package as CFO, Chief Financial Officer. Sophia couldn't hide her surprise. But you said you were a volunteer at the library. I lied, I replied simply. I didn't want you to know about my real job and salary. Salary. Mark leaned forward. And how much do you make, if you don't mind me asking? $75,000 a month, I said calmly, stating a fact. The room fell silent. Mark froze, mouth open. Sophia turned pale. The children, for the first time, showed genuine interest, looking at each other in astonishment. $75,000 a month, Mark repeated slowly, as if unable to believe his ears. But that's more than you made in a year at the insurance company, I finished for him. Yes, life is full of irony, isn't it? Mom, that's amazing. Mark finally found his voice. I'm so happy for you. And you know, it's for the best that it turned out this way. You've gained independence, a new life, thanks to you kicking me out of the house and pouring hot tea on me. I raised an eyebrow. Well, that's not what I meant, he said, embarrassed. It's just, everything's for the best, right? Maybe I agreed. But don't pretend you wanted to help me. You wanted to get rid of the burden, as you called me. Mom, I was wrong. Mark took a step toward me, his voice pleading. I admit it. I acted terribly, but we all make mistakes, right? Didn't you teach us to forgive? Yes, I nodded. And I forgive you, Mark. But that doesn't mean I'll forget, or that I should put myself at risk of being treated that way again. But we've changed, Sophia interjected, moving closer, her voice now honeyed. The last few months have been difficult for us. We've reevaluated a lot of things. Yeah, especially when you found out I make $75,000 a month. I couldn't resist the sarcasm. Eleanor, don't be like that. Mark stepped closer. Of course, things are tough financially, but it's not about the money. It's just that I've realized how much you mean to us. I sighed. His insincerity was palpable. Where are my things, Mark? I asked, ending the pointless conversation. In the garage, he said, visibly deflated. I'll walk you out. We walked through the kitchen to the garage. 3 cardboard boxes labeled Mom. That's everything, Mark said. I tried not to forget anything. Your photo albums, books, personal items. I opened the top box. Everything looked fine. Thanks, I nodded. Can you help me carry them to the car? Mark picked up 2 boxes, I took the third, the lightest. We left the house. Sophia and the children followed, not wanting to miss the spectacle. Wow, Alex breathed, speaking for the first time. Is that really your car, Grandma? Yes, Alex, I said, opening the trunk. It was large enough for all 3 boxes. Cool, the boy muttered with reluctant admiration. Mark carefully placed the boxes in the trunk and turned to me. Mom, please. Let's talk. I know I did a terrible thing, but I'm your son, your flesh and blood. Can you give me a second chance? I looked at him closely. A grown man, my child, whom I had given birth to, raised, sacrificed for. But in his eyes, I saw only calculation and despair, not love or remorse. You know, Mark, I said calmly, when you kicked me out, you called me a beggar. You said I was nobody, that I was living here out of the goodness of your heart. You didn't see me as a person, just a function, a convenient servant. I was wrong, he said, lowering his eyes. I didn't mean it. No, you did, I shook my head. And you know what's the saddest part? I almost believed you. I almost believed I was nobody, that I didn't deserve respect or a decent life. But now I know that's not true. I closed the trunk and walked around the car to the driver's side. Mom, please. Mark followed me. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. The bank is taking the house. I don't have a job. The kids could end up on the street. I'm sorry you're in this situation, I said sincerely. But you're a grown man, Mark. You'll manage. But you could help. His voice took on that familiar, demanding tone. You make a fortune, and your own son could end up homeless. Like you once said to me, I opened the car door. Let's see how you manage without us. Now it's your turn to find the answer to that question. You can't do this. Mark's voice became hysterical. I'm your son. Yes, you're my son, I said, getting behind the wheel. And that's exactly why I'm not just going to give you money. It won't help you become a better person. Maybe when you face the consequences of your actions, you'll finally learn to appreciate other people and treat them with respect. I started the engine, and the powerful roar made Mark take a step back. Goodbye, Mark, I said. I wish you and your family all the best. Mom, he made one last desperate attempt. You can't just leave. We're family. Family isn't just blood, I replied. It's mutual respect, care, and support. When you're ready for a real family relationship, you know where to find me. With that, I pulled away, leaving Mark, Sophia, and the children standing in the driveway, faces confused and angry. As I pulled onto the highway, I felt a strange sense of relief. Not malice, not vengeful satisfaction, but pure, unadulterated relief, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in many years, I was completely free. Free from guilt, from false responsibility, from toxic relationships. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, sipping a glass of fine wine, watching the lights of San Antonio sparkle. The boxes from Mark's house still sat unpacked in the corner of my living room. I decided I'd sort through them tomorrow, with a clear head. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Clara. Mom, how did it go? Her voice sounded worried. Fine, I replied calmly. I got my things and left. And Mark? Did he ask for help? Oh yes, I smiled. As soon as he found out about my salary, he remembered I was his beloved mother. And what did you decide? Clara asked cautiously. I refused, I replied simply. Not because I want to get back at him, but because it won't help him become a better person. He has to deal with the consequences of his actions himself. Silence. Then Clara said quietly, You know, Mom, I think you're right. Mark has always been complicated. Maybe this is exactly what he needs. Maybe, I agreed. Time will tell. After talking to my daughter, I returned to the balcony. The night was warm, a light breeze carrying the scent of blossoming trees from the waterfront. Somewhere, distant music played, and I heard laughter, people living their lives, with their joys and sorrows. I thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, I was a dependent, downtrodden old woman my own son considered a burden. Now I was a successful, financially independent woman with my own home, car, and most importantly, a profound sense of self-worth. Money had certainly changed my life for the better, giving me freedom, comfort, and opportunities one never had. But the true wealth didn't come with a bank account. It came with the realization of my own value, the ability to defend my boundaries, and the courage to live the way I believe is right.